Chapter 11 continued. Traffic moved slowly most days on the Fifth Ring Road around the city. There were days when Raj waited in the back seat of the limo, shielded from the fumes and noise for an hour without the car moving. That afternoon, Raj and the chauffeur watched as drivers and passengers emerged from their cars during the long wait. The highway was transformed into a giant coffee break. Several men leaned on the car next to the limo, smoking and laughing, telling stories of the day. Children chased each other around the stationary cars as if they were in a playground. An old woman was bent over a set of tiny porcelain teacups on the hood of the car behind them, pouring tea. A few moments after the cars began to move again, the limo slammed to a sudden stop, hitting the car in front of it. Raj jolted out of his seat, and the chauffeur's head bounced off the steering wheel. The world went silent for a moment, and Raj felt a surge of fear. In an instant, the image of the diamond field flashed across his mind, and a reassuring feeling of peace washed over him, lasting until he heard movement in the front seat. The chauffeur turned to see if Raj was okay. Then he got out of the car to check for damage. There were no dents in either car, which meant they'd be able to move on without the theatrical fist-waving and yelling that accompanied most accident scenes. The chauffeur returned, and Raj saw that his hands were shaking as he put the key in the ignition. His shoulders were clenched in stress. Raj looked at him carefully, realizing he had never seen the chauffeur's face. He remembered the life review from the Feather of Truth. "What's your name?" asked Raj, as warmly as he could. The man turned, uncertain how to respond, having never spoken directly to his young charge before. His chauffeur cap was tilted slightly on his head, blocking the sun and forming a long shadow across his face. "My name is Tom Huang, sir," he said with a thick Mandarin accent. "Are you okay?" asked Raj, smiling at Tom. "Yes, sir, I am fine, thank you." Tom's smile lit up his face and revealed how young he was. "He looks my age," thought Raj. "Well, I guess we better get home, Tom." Mei Ling wasn't sure what she was doing in the food court, eating noodles with Raj. He had called her a couple days after the Feather of Truth and asked to meet. She wondered how he knew about this place. The gritty, colorful food stalls exuding the odors of Chinese delicacies were so unlike Raj's sleek limousine and expensive perfume. She couldn't imagine him eating food produced in huge supply for the local palate and pocketbook. But he had seemed right at home, expertly navigating them both through the crowded food fair. They had passed several stalls selling bubble tea and had each bought one, the straws standing upright, anchored in a sea of pill-size tapioca balls. The hawkers yelled at them to purchase sticky buns and wonton noodles. In the end, they each bought a bowl of spicy Szechuan soup. Mei Ling watched as Raj added more spicy sauce to his noodles and stirred them elegantly with his chopsticks. "I need to understand this math," he blurted out. She looked at him more closely, wondering if this was some kind of joke. As they were in the same math class, she knew he did well in math. "What part do you find difficult?" she asked, wanting to buy some time to figure out what he was up to. He asked specific questions about their recent math assignment, and Mei Ling answered, forgetting her suspicions as she lost herself in the complex details of her favorite subject. They talked until their bowls were empty. "Thanks, Mei Ling," Raj said cheerfully as he put down his chopsticks and formally closed their discussion about math. She looked him in the eye. "Why are you being so nice?" "Oh, you know, just warming you up." He laughed a little, but it was a nervous laugh. She looked to see if he was serious. "For what?" she asked, waiting. A slight glint in his eye reassured her that she had not just spent the past hour with a complete jerk. "You know, Raj, maybe you should show more of this nice side when we're in the group." "Well, maybe you should reveal your intelligence more in the group and not be so afraid to speak out," he replied. "I'm not hiding. I just don't have much to say." She looked down at her hands, suddenly shy. "Don't have much to say or don't want to say what you know?" She could feel his eyes boring into her. "It looks like you and Emily have some kind of secret." Mei Ling met his penetrating gaze and cringed with guilt. "What do you mean?" It came out sounding more defensive than she'd intended. "I thought so," he said smugly. He rested his chin on his hands and peered across at her, waiting for a response. She hadn't noticed before that he had on an elaborate silver ring on one hand. It glared at her as if daring her to lie. "Well," she began, deciding there was no reason not to be honest. Then she told Raj about the voice, explaining all the details and the conclusion she and Emily had drawn. His face was impassive as he listened. When he didn't say anything, she wondered if he thought her story was crazy. He looked at his watch and got up. "We better go," he said, "so you can catch the next bus." She followed him without asking what he was thinking, even though she wanted to. Her bus was waiting at the stop, and they rushed to get there before it left. "Thanks for being honest with me," he said to her back as she boarded the bus. She turned and gave him a small wave goodbye, still bewildered, then found a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, she saw him wave back, and they held each other's gaze briefly. She saw a genuine smile spread across his face. Many of the students at the international school spent the weekends in the shopping malls, which were overrun with groups of giggling teens drinking bubble tea and talking on cell phones. But Solomon and Ben had discovered a better alternative, an underground world of computer gamers. After reading about it online, they had spent a full Saturday afternoon on a mission to find it. Eventually, they found the entrance, hidden behind a downtown movie theater. They followed a tunnel that descended several flights of stairs and led to a warehouse door splashed with psychedelic graffiti. This was not the kind of place Solomon would normally be comfortable entering, especially with Ben, but having come so far, he decided to try the door. He pushed it cautiously. It opened to reveal a cavernous room, bigger than a football field, filled with rows of computers. The eerie glow of black lights made the room dim and surreal. There was a small army of teenagers, each positioned in front of a computer screen, with a can of green tea, a small bag of snacks, and a cell phone propped next to them. Their white t-shirts glowed eerily under the black lights. The atmosphere was charged with intense concentration. Images of the same war-zone computer game flashed across multiple screens, creating the impression of a hall of mirrors. Solomon almost turned to leave, but a young woman with a lazy smile and a bored expression on her face looked up at them from the front desk, and he knew it was safe. After that first visit, they had returned every Saturday, happy to have found a secret getaway. Today, the same girl was at the front desk, and she smiled at them through her pink sunglasses as they approached. The multiple rings on her fingers flashed in the black light as she took their money for the hourly rental fee and turned back to her book. Ben and Solomon bought a can of juice and a bag of chips from the small canteen behind her, then settled in front of two computers. "I love it here, Solomon. Thanks for bringing me," Ben gushed. Solomon was hoping for some quiet time away from school and the assignment. He had spent hours thinking about the feather of truth and what it meant. Some of the more painful memories still haunted him. He fired up one of the games and settled in, grateful for the distraction. "Hey, Solomon!" He heard the familiar voice before he saw her. "Emily," he said, shocked to see her in this underground bunker. "What are you doing here?" "A guy in my class told us about this place," she said. "He comes here all the time. Thank goodness he talked us here on his cell, or we would never have found it." She looked around her. "Have you noticed they're all playing the same game?" She gestured to the computer screens. "Yeah, I'm trying to get Ben to play something else," Solomon said, nodding at Ben, who was staring at Emily. "My brother Ben," he said, confirming the obvious. "Hi, Ben. This is my sister, Tess. Tess, this is Solomon." Tess took the seat next to Ben, and within minutes they were giggling and talking like old friends. Emily logged onto the computer next to Solomon. The two of them sat silently for a long time, getting used to each other's unexpected presence. After a while, Solomon turned to her. I did some research into near-death experiences. Oh, yeah? Said Emily, turning to face him. I think that's what happened to me in the pyramid. He saw the interest on her face, so he continued. It seems like most people who have had a near-death experience see their whole life flash before their eyes when they leave their body. It's called a life review. That's what happened when I touched the feather. That makes sense, said Emily. So it's like a conscience review? Yeah, you watch everything you've done and you see how it has affected you and other people. So you think you had the same experience only without nearly dying, she said. I think so, he said quietly. So what's the secret then? Emily looked at him more closely. For the first time she noticed his brown eyes with deep pools of contemplation and kindness. That's what I've been trying to figure out. Solomon stared off into space, his recent experience fresh in his mind. I was trying to figure out why our lives flash before our eyes before we die, he continued. When I thought about the diamond field and how our spirit exists separate from our bodies, it made me wonder if maybe our spirits somehow carry our life lessons, and we need to review our life at the end so we understand what we've learned. Does that make any sense? Yeah, it does, said Emily, nodding slowly. Maybe the lessons shape who we become in the future, that is, if you believe in reincarnation. I'm starting to think I do, and that somehow all that we've done stays with us, so we can do better the next time round. In that case, then, said Emily, everything we do is incredibly important, isn't it? Solomon nodded. Emily turned away to consider the implications. Solomon quietly returned to his game. They spent the next 2 hours in companionable silence, with the occasional outburst from Tess and Ben when they scored points. Emily was about to tell Solomon about her dream of destruction and Mei Ling's experience with the voice, but something stopped her. She didn't notice the dull odor of spent firecrackers wafting in through the air conditioning system, or the slight metallic glare coming from her computer screen. Back in the apartment, Solomon helped Ben get ready for bed, then went to his own room to read. As he opened his school bag, a crumpled piece of paper fell out. He saw his name written on it and opened it to find a note from Mei Ling. Thank you for helping me with my books. M.L. He smiled and suddenly thought of his father and all the kind things he had done in his life. Dad would have had a good life review, he thought, comforted as he slipped into bed. Chapter 12. Ravana. It's no surprise they find it such a shock each time they leave their bodies, said the keeper of the earth as he entered the council room. After all, their bodies are made of the elements. The keeper of the water drifted into the room beside him. She took his proffered hand and lowered herself to a chair. Then he sat beside her. They are attached to their form, she said. Then they must work against the elements to break the attachment to their bodies. The room heated up as the keeper of the fire joined them. They don't have the power to leave their bodies without pain and struggle, he said. Humans believe that when a body dies, the spirit leaves it. They do not understand that it is the other way around. The keeper of the earth marveled at their memory loss. The body dies because the soul leaves it. A slight breeze refreshed the room, announcing the arrival of the keeper of the air. Oh, that is Ravana's greatest illusion, she said. She makes humans forget they are the fifth element. She has convinced them that they are the body. They forget that they are spirit. When they understand all the secrets, they will leave their bodies as easily as a hair pulled through butter, smiled the keeper of the water. They will begin to doubt, said the keeper of the earth, worry furrowing his brow. They will not be able to maintain focus, especially now that they will be parted from one another for this school break. You don't give them much credit, do you? Once again, the keeper of the water found herself defending the children. These are special children, chosen because they will understand, the keeper of the air added, her breathy support. Ravana has been working on them, affecting their trust in each other, said the keeper of the fire. Do you think they've noticed? Asked the keeper of the earth. Do they recognize the clues to her presence? They will begin to notice her shiny illusions, assured the keeper of the water. They do not have the power to withstand her influence, the keeper of the fire begrudgingly admired Ravana's skill. I fear they will forget the urgency of their mission. Can't we help them? They must conquer Ravana on their own. The keeper of the water reminded him, we cannot intervene. She will do whatever it takes to make them lose heart and give up, said the keeper of the earth. As he stood, the ground shook slightly beneath him. He moved to the window to watch and wait. Emily messaged Mei Ling. Hey, what are you doing for Christmas break? I'm staying here, said Mei Ling. Mom and Dad are both working. Chinese companies don't take much time off at Christmas, but at least there won't be as much tutoring as usual. What are you doing? I'm going home to visit my mom in Canada, said Emily. It'll be great to see her. I hope you have fun. Yeah, me too. We'll see, said Mei Ling. We need to keep going on the assignment, said Emily. We can't stop now. I feel something bad's going to happen, said Mei Ling. Me too, said Emily. I'm worried about Raj. Stay in touch with him while we're gone, okay? Just a couple of days of school left. See you. And with that, Emily was offline. Solomon put a water bottle and a change of clothes into his day pack. He had orientation today for his new job as a camp counselor during the Christmas break. He and Ben would both be spending a lot of time at the British Club while their mom worked. The time at camp would be fun for Ben and give Solomon a chance to earn some money. He heard his phone, saw Mei Ling's text, and responded immediately. You're around for the holidays, right? Said Mei Ling. Yeah, Emily's off to Canada, though, said Solomon. Yeah, and Raj is off to Delhi, said Mei Ling. You should keep in touch with him, said Solomon. He's more likely to listen to you. Mei Ling smiled at the unexpected compliment. Hey, do you want to hang out one day during break? Said Solomon. Yeah, said Mei Ling. That'd be great. Hey, said Raj, taking off his jacket and throwing it over a chair. The others were sitting in the library waiting for him to arrive. It was the last day before Christmas break, and they were anxious to get going. If we're going to do this, let's get started, Raj said, offering no apology for his late arrival. Emily adjusted herself to get comfortable. Tell them what you found out about life reviews, she urged Solomon. After Solomon described it, Raj said, So we'll all experience this before we die? I think so, said Solomon. Makes everything we do seem so much more important, said Mei Ling. Raj looked at the clock. His tone was softer when he spoke. We better get going before the late buses come for you guys. Mei Ling, why don't you get us started? Mei Ling began slowly. Her voice was quiet, but gained volume and strength as she continued. She started with the breath and then took them inside the room in their heads. Raj let out a sigh of surrender and began to concentrate. Emily could feel the almost forgotten sensation of peace pulling her inwards. Solomon relaxed his shoulders and settled into his own mind. After 10 minutes of quiet concentration, they opened their eyes to discover that they were in a room under a white spotlight that momentarily blinded them. The room had no ceiling. The spotlight originated from somewhere deep in the night sky. They stood on a raised platform in the center of a circular room. Well done, Mei Ling. I think we're getting better at this, said Solomon quietly. This is a much nicer place than the other rooms we've been in, Emily said. The light from the spotlight spread beyond the platform. As if passing through a prism, it refracted outwards as 8 rays, each a different color, that created a giant pinwheel with the platform at the center. Each color formed a pathway of light leading directly to a door in the curved white wall that surrounded them. This is the Wheel of Powers, Mei Ling chirped with excitement. This is exactly how I imagined it in the book. She bounced up and down, eager to move. Emily turned to her. Well, what's behind each door? Before anyone could respond, a door opened at the end of the magenta pathway. They could see only a darkness behind it. Suddenly, a man emerged from behind the door and ran toward the platform, yelling and shaking his fists. He was tall, had closely cropped, dark hair, and was wearing a pinstriped business suit. His face was red with anger, and he looked like he might explode. Excuse me, Emily called out. What's wrong? Before anyone could stop her, she left the platform and walked confidently toward the man. It's okay, she said as she got closer to him. Why are you shouting? What's bothering you? The man continued to shout and waved his fists in front of Emily's face. She couldn't understand what he was saying. His words came out as babble, like a combination of several languages. He didn't seem to notice her. She watched his face contort with anger, little bits of spit flying from his mouth as he spoke, his eyes blazing and his hands waving. Solomon yelled, "Be careful, Emily!" The man picked up a rock from the pile that had suddenly appeared at his feet and threw it toward the platform. Mei Ling scurried back and yelped. The man's hands were full of rocks, and he began throwing them at the group in rapid succession. Hey, said Emily, what are you doing? Stop it! She reached to take the rock from him, but he pulled away and continued to hurl rocks at her friends. Suddenly furious, Emily picked up a rock and threw it at his feet. In that moment, the spotlight disappeared and the room went dark. Then they were in the library again. What happened? Raj and Solomon spoke at the same time. Oh my God, you guys, Emily's voice was cracking with emotion. What did I do? I blew it. Is this what happens when we fail? Solomon looked around him in disbelief. We get sent back to the library? We didn't learn anything about that secret. Raj's tone was resentful, except not to throw rocks. Emily looked at her feet. But we already knew that, she said, dejected. Mei Ling sat next to Emily and leaned against her gently. Emily sat rigid, her cheeks wet with silent tears. Okay, so what do we do now? Mei Ling looked at Solomon. Should we try to go back? At that moment, a voice came across the loudspeaker. Emily Harding, please report to the office. Emily's eyes grew wide with alarm. It must be important, she said, and rushed from the library. The others watched her go, not knowing what to do. As Emily approached the office, she saw Tess sitting on a chair, her head hanging, her arms crossed over her stomach. Tess, what's wrong? Emily rushed toward her. My stomach hurts. Tess sounded pathetic. Her face was pale. A lot. It's been hurting a lot lately. What's going on? Emily's voice wavered. I don't know, but I want to go home. Tess whined, tears starting to flow down her cheeks. Okay, let's call Dad and ask him what we should do. Emily pulled out her cell and called him. She put her arm around Tess's small shoulders. He said the IE is at the apartment and we should go home. He'll leave work and meet us there. Tess managed a small smile. Mei Ling texted Solomon, anxious to find out if they were meeting Raj and Emily for coffee before they left for the holidays. They were planning to talk about their failed attempt with the Wheel of Powers and figure out what to do next. Mei Ling asked, is Emily's sister okay? Can Emily meet? She said Tess is feeling a little better, said Solomon. She can come for a quick meeting. Raj too. See you there. Mei Ling asked her dad for a drive to the downtown cafe. "Dad, it's okay. I can miss tutoring just this once," she said, trying not to beg. Surprisingly, he relented, but he wouldn't talk to her on the drive to the cafe. "Dad, is there something wrong?" Mei Ling couldn't bear his stony silence. "Your mother would be upset if she found out that you were missing tutoring, Mei Ling," he said finally, clearly distressed to be complicit in this deception. "What could be more important than your studies?" Mei Ling hesitated, unsure she could properly explain the situation to her father. "Dad, these are my friends, and they're leaving tomorrow for the rest of the break." She was surprised to hear the calm confidence in her own voice. "My math marks are fine. Missing this one time won't hurt them." She smiled at him, her resolve firm. He didn't look convinced or reassured, but he gave her a half smile as she got out of the car, a small indication that even though he disagreed with her decision, he wouldn't tell Mei Ling's mother. She nodded her appreciation and stepped out of the car in front of the cafe. She turned back to wave goodbye before he pulled away from the curb. She was about to enter the coffee shop when she heard the high-pitched squeal of tires. She turned to see a silver car crash headlong into the driver's side of her father's car, crushing the place where he was sitting. Her mouth opened in shock, a strangled scream on her lips, as thick gray smoke began to pour from the car.